More fallout over a bombshell intelligence report that says there are MPs who are willingly working with foreign actors, and there are now growing calls on Parliament Hill to start naming names.
Canadians have a right to know who and what is the information. Who are they?
But the Liberals are accusing the Conservatives of acting in bad faith, knowing intelligence details cannot be made public. They also say it's up to law enforcement to determine if intelligence is backed up by evidence. RCMP say they are investigating foreign interference in Canada, but did not say if there is an active probe into any member of Parliament. With me now to discuss is Tom Mulcair. He's CTV's political commentator and the former leader of the NDP. I think I have a mile-long list of questions for you this morning, Tom. So Canadians are going to have a tough time understanding why these MPs or senators can't be named. The Conservatives say Canadians have the right to know. The Liberals say it's irresponsible to identify them. Can you please explain to us the potential risks in identifying those who might be accused of aiding foreign governments?
Well, the risk is something that we saw in politics in the 1950s in the United States with McCarthyism. It's enough to simply name someone to put a dark cloud over them and to have suspicion about them. In our system of government, based on the rule of law, you have to have a due process of law before you can even accuse somebody. Here, what the RCMP is being invited to do is to find out if there's anything there that could be the basis of an accusation. But if you were to come out with their names now, there would be immediate suspicion, if not worse, on the part of a lot of Canadians. And I do think that it is a bit tricky for Mr. Poilievre to be pushing so hard, because I don't think in his heart of hearts he really wants the names to come out, because there's just as strong a chance there could be a Conservative on that list as a Liberal or an NDP or anybody else. But what he gets to do is to stand up, emote about it, and know that the Liberals are not going to make those names public. But where the Conservatives have been scoring consistently is on the whole question of foreign interference in Canadian democratic life. And I think that, for all of us, is a real concern. Steve Marr's great new book about Mr. Trudeau's years in office says that probably the last 18 to 20 months or so have been the most difficult because of the issue of alleged Chinese government interference in Canadian elections. Now, we've got a commission of inquiry. Even there, Mr. Trudeau is refusing to release all the information that was supposed to be given to Justice Hogue. She's apparently not pleased with this at all. She's going to keep pushing to see all the documents, even though she doesn't have to make them all public. She has to understand the context. But since the beginning, Trudeau has tried to blow hot and cold on this. He had his folks tell everybody in Canada, oh, yes, I was giving what for to the Chinese president for interfering in our elections. Gets back to Canada, won't describe what happened, passes it off to David Johnston, stalls, won't be transparent, won't be forthcoming. It's on top of that the Conservatives are, I would say, successfully surfing right now, even though I do find it untoward to the extent that they know full well that those names are not going to be given. So the Liberals are left there flailing. They don't have a process, and they don't have much credibility left.
Do MPs have parliamentary immunity?
For anything that they say in the House, but they don't have parliamentary immunity for anything to do outside the House. So in the worst case scenario, let's come up with something where somebody was actually being paid by a foreign government to provide information of what they learned in Parliament or to influence their vote, let's say, then that would be a serious offense for both parties. So your immunity means that you can stand up in the House of Commons and allege things that could invite you into a lawsuit outside of Parliament. But it doesn't give you immunity for everything from prosecution, not at all.
Why would MPs share information with foreign diplomats or governments?
We're a country of so many people from so many countries around the world. And we're a country of immigrants who come to Canada, become full Canadian citizens. And you don't want that old saw about dual loyalties coming into play. But there's no doubt that diaspora politics, I mean, in my old riding in Chamonix, when I was provincial politics, it was a fascinating melting pot of so many different diverse cultural communities. You get to know them all, get to know their politics. And of course, if they've got issues or questions or concerns, they're going to start pushing that with you. That's one level of working in diaspora politics, and it's always been part of Canadian life. It doesn't matter which cultural community or ethnic community it was. What we're talking about here is something far more difficult to deal with. It would be the actual use by a foreign power, in the case of the allegations against the Chinese government, of their power, their influence, and their sheer numbers of their diaspora to try to push towards a political result, try to put in place people closer to their regime or less likely to challenge it, trying to get their way. And there are allegations in what's been revealed that that type of thing has been carried on to a different level. And that's why this is so worrisome, that there would actually be people being paid to do the bidding of a foreign government. That's something we've never heard of in Canadian politics, and I think it's something that we should all be very worried about.
What's your take on why party leaders are not committing to expelling parliamentarians who collaborate with foreign actors?
Well, that's a key word, collaborate, and I think that it's a very tough word, but it is the key word. It's the right word. I think that they're all being super prudent because they don't know how this information was gathered, and it's one thing for the government to keep saying, well, it's not proof, but if there's enough indication there that something went wrong, then they have to be transparent. They have to start talking more about it than they have. They talk about it too much and then not enough. And that's why Trudeau whipsawing on this thing back and forth for over 18 months has gotten himself into so much trouble. It is, I think, one of the leading causes of the fact that Canadians are moving away from his party right now.
My last question for you this morning is, should Canadians know if there is an RCMP investigation underway? We don't even have clarification on that, Tom.
We do seem to understand that the RCMP is saying we're looking at this whole question of foreign interference writ large, but they won't say whether they're actually carrying out investigations on this, because that makes it much more difficult to keep a lid on this thing. So I think that the Liberals are dancing around it. The RCMP's resources are not unlimited, by the way. There is so much for them to investigate, and they're always prudent. They always try to stay one step back from actually investigating elected officials. But if in this case it is foreign bad actors actually paying people who have been elected to Canadian Parliament or have been named to the Senate to do their bidding, then obviously Canadians have a right to know about it.
Tom, thanks so much. I got halfway through my list. We'll talk to you again. CTV's Tom Mulcair. He's our political commentator and the former leader of the NDP.